So this is lesson 3B, solving quadratic equations. It says to graph both functions on the same coordinate axis. Okay, so you got two equations here, y equal to 0. So what does y equal to 0 look like on the graph? So this is a linear function, and I think we already did this before. It is y equal to 0, x plus 0. So it's a linear function where the slope is 0. This is the slope, and the y-intercept is 0. So if the y-intercept is 0 and the slope is 0, it's because it's going like this. So y equal to 0 is actually the x-axis. So y equal to 0 is the x-axis. Okay, so now we have y equals x minus 3 squared minus 4. That is a quadratic function that we've worked on that for the last 3 weeks. So how do we graph this? We can find the vertex. So the vertex will equal to x is 3 and y is negative 4. So the vertex is at 3, negative 4. And the a value for it is 1. So we're going to go up 1 over 1. And then up 1 over 1. And then we can draw the graph. Something like that. So we're going to put together then what we did in chapter 1, where we had done a system of equations. And I told you that if y is equal to 0, here at top, y is equal to 0, then that 0 is also can be plugged in here. So basically, we're setting them equal to each other. So 0 is equal to x minus 3 squared minus 4. So for what x value, when you work it out, it will equal to 0. You can graphically see it right here. Where does the, and I'm going to change the color, where does the this parabola cross the x-axis, the red line? Where do they cross each other at? They cross each other right here and right here. These are solutions. Because then that would be x is 1, and the y is 0. And then this one, x is 5, and the y value is 0. So these are the two solutions of the system. Or so when it asks what are the solutions of the system, the solutions would be the points where they cross each other at. And that would be at 1, 0, and 5, 0. So that is the big picture, the big idea of solving quadratic equations. Okay, so that's what we're going to do today, solve quadratic equations. Okay, moving on. You guys got it? Give you a little bit of time. Okay, so I hope you understand the big picture is where does it cross the x-axis? All right, here we go. Solve the following quadratic equations. Problem number 1. This is in standard form, and this is what we did on Friday, where I told you of a specific method that I use, and that you could go on YouTube and see a bunch of different methods of solving quadratics. But this is my method, and I've been doing this method forever. And so this is the way I teach it, and it's by the X method. Okay? So you guys remember doing this on Friday. How does it go? What goes at the bottom of the X? 6 goes at the bottom of the X. The middle number goes to the bottom. And what goes on top of the X? 8 goes on top of the X. So now we want to get two numbers that multiply and equal 8 that add up to 6. What are two numbers that multiply equal 8 add up to 6? 4 and 2. So we got 4 and 2. Okay, so 4 and 2. And what we did on Friday was put it in factor form. And in factor form, we put factors. We did this, and we said x plus 4, and then the other one is x plus 2 is equal to 0. Because now we don't, last time we had a y equals, and now we're saying that y is equal to 0. And so y is 0, we put it equal to 0. So how do we solve this? This is called zero product property. And it goes like this. If x plus 4 is 0, if this quantity is equal to 0, then 0, don't write this down, 0 times anything, 0 times x plus 2 will equal to 0. So what we're going to do is just set each one of them equal to 0. X plus 4 is equal to 0, and x plus 2 is equal to 0. And we solve. So we got two equations. How do I solve this first equation? What do I do? How do I get the x by itself in this first equation here? Minus 4 from both sides. Yes? So x is equal to negative 4. How about this one? What do I do here? Subtract 2 from both sides, and we get x equal to negative 2. Now, let me tell you guys that I do learn from students, and so this is the way I've always taught it until one student said, that's too much work. And I said, well, how do you do it easier? The answers are already there. This was not me, this was a student. The answer is already here on the x, on this magic x. Why? Look, if you understand what I just did, this is the big idea, the mathematical idea. But now, the solutions are already here. X is going to have to equal to, what was the answer here? When we did all the work? Negative 4, wasn't it? All you got to do is just go, x equals what? Negative 4, and x equals what? Negative 2. That's because you understand everything else, and not just, but that's how it works. So again, this one was a student that that saw that, and he just didn't want to do a lot of work, and so. But this is what you would do on. All right, let's go. Let's go to number 2. So if we're gonna use this method, it has to be equal to 0. So how do we make it equal to 0 in this problem number 2? Because it's not equal to 0. What should I do? Subtract 9x. Subtract 9x. Subtract 9x. So we're going to have x squared minus 9x plus 18 equal to 0. And now we're going to do the x method. And we do the x method. What goes at the bottom of the x? Is that a negative 9? What goes on top of the x? 18. And what are two numbers that multiply to equal 18 add up to negative 9? Two numbers that multiply to equal 18 add up to negative 9. Negative 6 and what else? Is it negative 3 also? Are they both negative? What's negative times a negative? Positive 6 and 3, 18. What's negative 6 plus negative 3? What's negative 6 plus negative 3? Negative 9. Okay, so it works. So if we can now follow what that one student did last time, what are the solutions? X equals what? 6 X equal to positive 3. So that's what, how do you solve these kind of equations when they're in this form? Positive 6, positive 3. Okay, let's go to number 3. All right, number 3. It depends on the form that they give you. This right here, it's missing the x. See, this one had 31 doesn't have an x, negative 31, or 49 doesn't have an x. So the only x is this x squared. So we're not going to do the x method here. We're just going to get the x by itself. So solve for x in this situation. So what do I do to solve for x? What's step 1 in getting the x by itself? What do you think is the first step in getting the x by itself? Plus 31 is correct. Plus 31. So 4x squared comes down. What is 49 plus 31? What's 40? 80? Then what do we do? Divide by 4. X squared is going to equal to what? What's 80 divided by 4? 20? 20? What do we do next? How do I get the x by itself now? How do we get rid of that? Square root it. Square root it on both sides. Square root it. So x, whenever you take a square root, the answer is going to be plus or minus. And for right now, we'll leave it at square root of 20. But we can simplify it more, but for right now, leave it like that. So that's how we solve these problems. So this one, I said, you add 31, divided by 4, square root it, and x is going to equal to square root of 20 for now, plus or minus square root of 20. But then it simplifies to this. All right, let's go to problem number 4. You really need to know this one because that's going to be how we're going to solve equations tomorrow for word problems. So what is step number 1 for number 4? What is step number 1 to solving? What comes to mind? What do you think we should do here? When you have something like this, you're gonna have to okay, here, let me tell you the steps. Whenever you have, this is a vertex form. You see the a value and then the square is the vertex form. Divided by 2. Step 1, get rid of the a value. X plus 3 squared equals 2. Now what do we do? We got to get rid of the power of 2. How do I get rid of power of 2? Square root it. Square root it. Whenever you take a square root of both sides, you're going to do a plus or minus. Square root of 2. Plus or minus. You always put a plus or minus. Now how do I get the x by itself? Minus 3. And you get x is going to equal to negative 3 plus or minus square root of 2. That is the answer right there. So that's how we're going to solve equations when we do word problems tomorrow. So there's that. So step number 1 is to get rid of the a value, which is 2, by dividing. Square root it. Subtract 3, and there's the answer. Problem number 5. Problem 5, here we go. X squared is equal to 6x. This one again is a different, it's presented differently. It has the quadratic and the linear. This is called x squared is the quadratic term, the linear term. So it's missing the constant. So in this one, we want to use this method of zero product property. So you got to set it equal to 0. How do we set this equal to 0? How do we set it equal to 0? Subtract 6x. So it's going to become x squared minus 6x equal to 0. Then we factor. So what's the greatest common factor? What is it they have in common? The x squared and the 6x. Both have x is correct. So we're going to factor out an x. So now we go x times what is x squared? X times what is x squared? It's just x. Well, x times x is x squared. And then x times what is negative 6x? Negative 6. And then we do the zero product property. We say that x has to be equal to 0 because this is 0 times anything is 0. So x is 0. And then we go x minus 6 equal to 0. And we solve this. What do I do to solve it? How do I get the x by itself? Plus 6. So x is going to equal to 6. So the solutions are 0 and 6. All right, we got this problem, one more. Let's go. We're almost done here. So you got this big equation, and it looks to be all like in standard form. So we want to move everything to either the left or to the right side of the equal sign. Should we move everything to the left or to the right? Left or to the right? Well, move everything to the right. You could move it to the left, but no. Why would I move it to the right? What was it? What did I say? You look for the higher power. So x squared and x squared is the higher power. But so which one is bigger? Is this more or the x squared? Isn't 2x squared more than x squared? So we're going to move everything to the right. Everything to the right. So we're going to plus x minus 28 and minus x squared. Negative x and positives cancel. So 0 is going to equal 2. Move this over. 0 is going to equal 2. 2x squared minus x squared is x squared. 2x plus 1x is 3x. And minus 28, just bring it down. And now we can do the x here. What goes at the bottom of the x? 3. And what goes on top? Negative 28. And we want to get two numbers that multiply equal negative 28, add up to 3. Two numbers that multiply to negative 28, add up to 3. Two numbers that multiply equal negative 28, add up to 3. Anybody? How about 7 and negative 4? What's 7 times negative 4? What's 7 times negative 4? Negative 28. What's 7 minus 4? 3. And now, what are the solutions now then? X equals what? Negative 7 and x equals what? Positive 4. Okay, here's the last problem here. Find the value of x. So they're telling you the area of this rectangle is 48 square feet. And they give you the dimensions here, where the bottom side is x plus 2. Then the up and down is x. So this is the area of a rectangle that they give you a total. So you guys remember the formula for area of a rectangle from geometry? What's the area of a rectangle formula? You guys took geometry, no? What is it? Area of a rectangle. What's the formula for area of a rectangle? Isn't it length times width? Isn't area equals length times width? Yes or no? Yes. So now which one is L? L is the long side. So this is L. So this better be the width. So the width is going to equal to x here. So plug it in. Plug in L, whatever L is, which is x plus 2. And the width is x. And that has to equal to what? What's area given? 48. Multiply it out. Let's multiply it out, and we're going to use zero product property. X times x is x squared. X times 2 is 2x equals 48. And now we can use the x method if we can. Let's move it over. Minus the 48. And then we can do the x method. What goes at the bottom? And what goes on top? Negative 48. So now what are the two numbers that multiply to equal negative 48 add up to 2? Two numbers multiply to negative 48 add up to 2. Two numbers that multiply to negative 48 add up to 2. Nobody? What's 8 times negative 6? Negative 48. What's 8 minus 6? So what are the actual solutions then? X equals what? And x equals what? So now, let's really think about these solutions. Can x equal negative 8? Can really a length be equal to a negative 8? It makes no sense, doesn't it? So then what's the actual only answer? The only answer is that what? X is 6, isn't it? Because then if this is 6, and then this is 6 plus 2 is 8, what is 8 times 6? What is 8 times 6? 48. So that, the only answer that could be correct is 6. That could make sense. All right, and we're done.